Do you know, the Camino, in my mind, is all about the journey, not the destination. And it took walking my first Camino to really understand what that meant. Coming right up, I'll explain it. So we've all heard that throwaway line, haven't we? It's all about the journey, not the destination. And we apply it to all kinds of different things in our life, you know, but until I walked my first Camino in 2015, I'd probably never really thought about that saying much. And to be honest, I probably didn't really appreciate its meaning, but it absolutely applies to the Camino. So let me explain, and I'll give you a few tips at the end to get the most out of your Camino journey. So if it's your first one particularly. So my first Camino, 2015, I was walking the Camino Frances from Saint-Jean through to Santiago. I was overweight and injured, so I'd allowed myself 40 days to do it. And I think I did it in about 40 days. So how it kind of unfolded, you know, on the first day out of Saint-Jean, going up over the Pyrenees, I mean, I was floating on air. I mean, I was just so pleased to actually just be there, finally, on the Camino, you know, walking in the path of millions of pilgrims before me, and it was just such an amazing experience, and I was loving every minute of it, you know, the good and the bad, you know, because there are some bad bits, like getting injuries and aches and pains and things like that. But I was absolutely loving it. So much so that within the first 2 weeks, I'd had so many amazing experiences that I actually sat down and I got a bit glum after about 2 weeks. And it was almost like exhaustion, because I thought all of these fantastic things have happened, and like I've got another 2 weeks or 3 weeks to go. You know, what's going to happen next? And I think to a degree, the routine of sort of walking all day, every day was getting me down. And so that's, you know, part of the emotional highs and lows of walking the Camino. But the main point I want to make is that when I was about 10 days away from Santiago, I really started to feel sad. And do you know the reason why? Because the journey was coming to an end. You know, I still had 200 kilometers to walk or something, and I was in quite a bit of pain then because my injuries had got worse. But I was really starting to feel sad because this journey that I had been on to that point for maybe 30 days was coming to a close. And it was in the final days into Santiago, particularly, that I really got to understand the meaning of that saying. It's all about the journey, not the destination. And in I think the final day, I was up on Monte de Gozo overlooking Santiago, and I shot a little video there. And I had kind of come to accept that the journey was going to finish. And I reflected on the journey and what I'd achieved through the journey and what I'd learned and the people I'd met. And I just found the journey was wonderful. And I wasn't sort of that sad that it was coming to an end because of that. I'd made sure that I'd enjoyed every element of the journey. And why is that important? Because when you actually get to Santiago, particularly on your first Camino, however far you've walked, a lot of people can have this sense of disappointment. Because maybe, you know, if you've walked from Sarria for 6 or 7 days, you're probably just getting into your stride by the time that you hit Santiago. If you've walked from further away, maybe you've been walking for 2, 3, 4 weeks already, you're really sort of into the routine of it all. You're probably loving that routine. And then, it's a bit of an anticlimax when you get to Santiago. It's great to go to the Pilgrim Mass and all those sorts of things, but you know what you had come to enjoy so much has suddenly come to an end. And so I've mentioned in other videos, kind of be prepared a little bit for that, you know, with that little bit of a letdown at the end. So let's back up a little bit. So this is why it's really important to enjoy the journey, because walking the Camino, to my mind at least, is all about the journey. It is not about reaching Santiago. It is not about, walking it in 28 days from Saint-Jean or 30 days or, setting yourself a personal challenge to how far you can walk every day. It's, personal opinion. It's got absolutely nothing to do with that. It's about the inner and outer journey that you're undertaking, however far you're walking the Camino. So what I would tend to say to people is, don't worry about the distances, just cruise along at a comfortable pace. It's interesting, if you're walking from Saint-Jean on your first or second day, as you depart from Roncesvalles, there's this big sign, and I think it says Santiago 790 kilometers. It's probably the most depressing sign on the Camino. You kind of look at that and you go, oh no. But, it's a wonderful sign in a way, because it's kind of saying to you, hey, you've got all this time ahead of you. Start enjoying this journey. So I always say to people, focus on the moment. Focus on the next couple of hours where you're going to stop for coffee and things like that. If you're walking the Camino Frances particularly, there's lots of villages. Focus on the day where you're going to be staying that evening. Think about tomorrow. I very, very rarely, when I'm on Camino, think about the end point in Santiago. I don't want to think about that, because that's the end of the journey. I want to enjoy the journey. I want to be in the moment and enjoy it. And what I would say to you is, really don't think about the number of kilometers, miles that you're walking every day, but think of the journey in a more holistic sense, what you're gaining from the journey. And what do you gain from it? I think a lot of people miss out, to be honest, because they're so focused on the distance and keeping up with their schedules and things like that. I would say embrace whatever comes your way. Slow down, enjoy the scenery, enjoy, I sometimes sit on a hilltop and just watch the cows for half an hour, Where in your life do you get the opportunity to slow down like that and just kind of connect with nature and with other people around you? So don't race. Set out with realistic expectations. I think that's an important thing too. People have goals to walk in a certain number of days or whatever that might be, but try to sort of see a little bit beyond that. And also, don't be upset if your expectations are not met. So, I think a great thing that people often say about the Camino is it's wonderful to plan, where you're going to walk and where you're going to stop and things like that, but kind of discard that plan on day one, because things will unfold. Wonderful things will unfold. Great experiences, and just, be open to them and accepting of them. It could be that places you'd intended to stay are not available and you're going to end up staying somewhere else, and wow, you're going to have a fantastic experience because it wasn't what you expected. You're going to meet amazing people. That's one of the best aspects of walking a Camino. Take time to talk to people. It's hard not to. You're going to meet people on the trail. You're going to meet people in cafes. Even if you're a little bit introvert, try and open up and just talk to people. You meet the most amazing people from all over the world. So be open to other people, to places, to experiences. Don't be too hung up about the food. Try different things. So I would say just open up and absorb and appreciate every element of the journey, because whilst, let's say you're leaving from Saint-Jean, Santiago can seem a long, long way away. It's funny, it creeps up on you, and before you know it, you'll be, 200 kilometers from Santiago, and then 100 kilometers from Santiago. And if you've walked quite a long distance, once you hit Sarria, it sounds crazy, but it feels like, oh, we're on the home straight now. We've still got 115 kilometers to walk. But I love that walk from Sarria, but it's kind of the end straight as well. I realize it's all coming to a close fairly soon. So what's the big tip? I could ramble on about this, for hours and hours and hours, but think about that saying, it's all about the journey and not the destination. And that really, for me, is what the Camino is all about. Whichever Camino you're walking, whether you're walking for 6 weeks, 1 week, enjoy every moment of it, every experience that's open to you, the people that you come across. Just relish every hour and every day of it, and you'll get an enormous amount from it. And try not to be too fixated on the destination and, reaching the cathedral and getting your Compostela and so on. That's kind of really not what it's about. It's about the journey. So yeah, if you've walked Caminos in the past, maybe you have some views on that. Feel free to share them down below. By all means, if you have differing opinions, share those down below. If you enjoy the video, if you enjoy the channel, if you're not subscribed, maybe think about hitting that subscribe button, because I try to get these videos out every week. And if you hit the little bell next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified every time a new video comes out as well. So thank you for joining me. Just short video this week, but something to think about. The journey, not the destination. See you next week.